What's up, everyone? Monster Master Godzilla here, and here I am going to continue the Star Wars-A-Thon. We're now up to Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Now, this one came out in 2005. I was 10 years old during the time, and this one is the final chapter of the Prequel Trilogy, where how it all began. This is where it began, the Star Wars original trilogy. And Anakin is now a Jedi in this one. Hayden Christensen is back as Anakin, and Ewan McGregor is back as Obi-Wan, of course. The beginning shows that both Anakin and Obi-Wan we're on a mission to go after General Grievous. And they had a. So then, when they found General Grievous's ship, when they got into the General Grievous's ship, they were infiltrating into the place, and they were also on the hunt for Count Dooku, and General Grievous is this new like this cyber, which just looks like this cyborg looking guy, which nobody knows what he looks like before he was this droid. Well, he also has some problems breathing with himself, which is why he coughs a lot. Which I don't understand. I don't understand why he has those problems. It's probably because he just doesn't breathe really well. And he's the leader of those of the separatist droids, the battle droids. And also there's a moment where Obi-Wan and Anakin were on the elevator, but they were having issues with it, so they contacted R2. So, and R2 messed up. And there was a funny moment with both Obi-Wan and R2. When R2 decided to make them go down, he's like, "Oh, R2. R2 were supposed to be going up, not down." Oh man, it was funny. I mean, Star Wars definitely had their moments where it's funny. And of course, and the funny story is that they changed the battle droids' voices, which sounded weird. But there's some. But a lot of them stayed the same even during the Clone Wars TV series. And then they found both Obi-Wan and Anakin were on the mission to rescue Chancellor Palpatine. And then turns out it was set as a trap because Count Dooku shows up. And both Obi-Wan and Anakin took on Count Dooku, and Anakin finally ends up defeating Count Dooku, simply by slicing off his hand, and he grabs his lightsaber, and then you hear Chancellor Palpatine say, "Kill him," and then you'll find out later on, because you see that Count Dooku looks at Chancellor Palpatine. It was like, well, and he looks at him looking like a puppy, and he ends up slicing Obi-Wan. But then Anakin ends up slicing Dooku's head off with a scissors, and he defeats Count Dooku. And just when they're about to escape, they end up they end up meeting face to face with General Grievous, and got their lightsabers taken away, but they got them back later on in battle count, and got them back. Oh yeah, and both Obi-Wan and Anakin were generals during the Clone Wars. Obi-Wan is considered General Kenobi, like how the clone troopers had referred to Anakin as General Skywalker. So then later on, after they return to both Anakin and Obi-Wan return to Coruscant, Anakin comes back to Padme, and Padme reveals herself to be pregnant. Yep, they're expecting a child. Later on, Anakin ends up realizing has a nightmare that he ends up having a nightmare about Padme dying. Ends up learning, so that's all foreshadowing what's going on in his life. So then Anakin ends up having some problems where he's feeling some frustration in himself. And C-3PO makes a comeback, and this time he's gold. Really gold. Like the way he's supposed to look in the original trilogy. The clone troopers in this one now look like the stormtroopers which you see in the original trilogy. Yes, that's right. That's how they end up looking the way they're supposed to in the original trilogy. And so the Jedi Council then talk about having the battle with the Wookiees. Then the Wookiees make an appearance, which this film chronologically is the first appearance of Chewbacca. Yeah, Chewbacca makes an appearance in this one, which is chronologically his first appearance. Because Chewbacca makes an appearance in Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, and he's partnered with Han Solo. But chronologically, this is Chewbacca's first appearance in Star Wars Episode 3. And so then they were in the battle with Kashyyyk, where the army of Wookiees took on all battle droids in their way. And while they're in war, Anakin ends up spending a lot of time with Chancellor Palpatine. But then we later found out that Chancellor Palpatine and Darth Sidious are actually one of the same. So you later find out that the Palpatine is the Emperor, with his voice going guttural like this: "I am the Senate." And he shows his red lightsaber. Ends up showing his red lightsaber, and both Mace Windu and the other Jedi battled Chancellor Palpatine, and then Anakin comes around, and then he eventually snaps, turns to the dark side, and killed Mace Windu. So after killing Mace Windu, Anakin later ended up becoming the Emperor's apprentice. And the Emperor dubs him as Darth Vader. So he's not the Darth Vader physically yet, with the wearing all black with the suit and helmet. This one's like in the premature stage. So, but here's what happens: that he ends up going by the name Darth Vader. And then the Emperor ends up bringing in the clone troopers, Order 66, after Obi-Wan took on General Grievous. And Obi-Wan took on General Grievous, and surprisingly he ended up having 4 arms and used 4 different lightsabers, 2 blue and 2 greens. And my god, General Grievous gave Obi-Wan a tough time, and he finally killed him by shooting him in his stomach cavity. And that's the end of General Grievous. So then after General Grievous is killed, the Emperor sends out the clone troopers and as Order 66, telling them that the Jedi are the enemy. And that's right, folks. The clone troopers, or stormtroopers, if you wish, they're not good or evil. They start off being like allies to the Jedi, but then later turn on them. That shows that they're not good or evil. They're soldiers, like doing their job, taking orders. So there we go. The number of Jedi Knights have been killed. By the stormtroopers, but Yoda wound up surviving. Ends up being one of those that survived. Yoda became one of those that survived. Obi-Wan survived it. Survived those Jedi attacks. And Yoda ends up traveling with Chewbacca and Tarful, who are generals of the Wookiees and Kashyyyk. So when they make the escape, the Obi-Wan and Yoda end up rendezvousing together. And then Anakin, he ends up seeing all the younglings. The younglings ask, Master Skywalker, there's clones everywhere. What do we do? But then turns out Anakin ends up killing the younglings. And so the younglings wound up getting killed by Anakin as well. So that's when basically the majority of the Jedi had been wiped out. Yoda and Obi-Wan were like the last surviving Jedi. Were among the last of the Jedi. Anakin is a fallen Jedi, but he became a Sith. He's slowly becoming a Sith. So after he killed many of the Jedi, Anakin was sent to Mustafar, which is a planet full of lava and everything. So then Anakin ends up going after the Separatist base, ends up killing all of the Separatists. And after that, the Clone Wars were over. And the Republic is no more. The Republic was no more. And the Empire had took over the entire galaxy. And so then Yoda ends up taking on the Emperor. And Anakin and Obi-Wan wound up taking on Anakin. So then Anakin ends up meeting up with before Anakin ends up meeting up with Obi-Wan again. He ends up meeting with Padme, and Padme was heartbroken by that, saying that they're about to rule the galaxy together, but it's not what Padme wanted. Saying, "Please, I love you," she says, and he yelled, "Liar!" And then sees Obi-Wan and said, "You turned her against me. You turned this on yourself." But then Anakin was brainwashed, saying, "My new empire. Join me on my new empire." He said, "Your new empire? Are you lost your mind?" And stuff like that. so then, saying the Jedi are the enemy, said, and he says that the Emperor was the evil one, and he said if you're not with me, then you're my enemy. So then Obi-Wan and Anakin ended up battling against each other, and man, it was sad. It was very sad. So then they end up battling, and then Yoda fights the Emperor. Yoda ends up defeating the Emperor, and then he escapes from the Emperor, of course. And then and the battle ends where both Anakin and Obi-Wan escaped, and he says, "I have the high ground," and stuff. You underestimate my power. And then Anakin ends up tries to jump after Obi-Wan, and then only to have Obi-Wan slice his legs off and his other arm, and took his lightsaber away. He said, and he said, "You were the chosen one. You're supposed to defeat the Empire, not. You're supposed to bring balance to the Force and stuff like that. You're supposed to end the dark side, not join it." And Anakin was like, "I hate you," he says. Yelled, "I hate you." But then Obi-Wan's saying, "You are my brother, Anakin. I loved you." And stuff like that. And so then it was sad when Obi-Wan ends up leaving Anakin. And then Anakin burns in the lava just when you thought he died. But it turns out Anakin survives from getting burnt by the lava. So then the Emperor finds Anakin's body. And both the Empire ends up recovering Anakin's body. And they brought him back together. Give him a new suit and got him the helmet. And the helmet provided him oxygen on him breathing, since he was all burned up. Which gave him the famous breathing that goes like this. Yeah, that's the famous breathing there. So then Obi-Wan ends up taking Padme to the hospital, and then so then they realized that Padme was dying, and Padme ends up giving birth to her and Anakin's child, and it turns out they had twins. First came out a boy, and then a girl. The boy was named Luke, and the girl was named Leia. Thus, Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia were born. So then now Darth Vader is officially born. So then Anakin is now fully Darth Vader. Is now full-on Darth Vader. And that's when the Emperor says, "Lord Vader, can you hear me?" And that's when you hear Vader speak for the first time. When you hear Anakin speak as Darth Vader for the first time, he says, "Yes, my master. Where's Padme? Is she safe? Is she alright? Well, it appears in your anger you killed her." "No, I couldn't have. She was alive. I felt it." And then he snaps. And then yelled, "No!" And yeah, Darth Vader was pretty angry. And that's when he's now completely Darth Vader. And then after the twins were born, Padme dies. And they had provided a funeral for her too. Even Jar Jar Binks was at the funeral. And so, and then meanwhile, after Darth Vader became the Emperor, after Anakin became Darth Vader, we get to see that the Death Star was being built. And both Anakin and then Darth Vader and then Obi-Wan wound up taking both the twins to their families. Both Leia and Luke were separated from birth. Leia was sent to Bail Organa and became the adopted daughter of Leia. And Luke was sent to Owen and Beru White Son Lars and Beru at Tatooine and got raised in a moisture farm. And that's where chronologically it begins the original trilogy. So, what can I say about this one? This one I find is the best of the original of the prequel trilogy in my eyes. And when I was, like I said, I was 10 years old during the time when it came out. There were a lot of marketing during the time, like they had lightsaber spoons that were sold in cereal boxes during the time, and Cheetos had made their promotion of Star Wars Episode 3, where their cheese puffs would turn your tongue Darth Vader purple and Yoda green. So yeah, during the time it was great to have Star Wars in the theaters for the prequel trilogy, and it ended. Would I recommend this one? Yes, I would say so, because this one's the best of the prequel trilogy in my eyes. I mean, I will say, so this one I find very entertaining, very emotional. It was pretty sad, like the saddest of the prequel trilogy. And it was very well directed. But, I mean, still, a lot of hardcore Star Wars fans hated the prequel trilogy, but it doesn't bother me. I mean, sure, it has its problems, but at least the certain parts of the franchise, they fixed that by filling in gaps. And you'll see what I mean when we get up to the next film. So that's all I have to say, folks, and I truly recommend giving this one a watch, especially if you're getting into Star Wars and stuff like that. And that's all I have to say, folks. And as always, stay awesome, my Monster Masters, and I'll catch you later. And stay tuned, I'll be reviewing Star Wars The Clone Wars. And that's it for now. And as always, stay awesome, pals. Goodbye.